It's time for another episode of NHL Trade Proposals, the series where I take your NHL trade proposals and I talk about them here in a video format. Because it's the off-season and because I have nothing else to talk about, I'm pre-recording this video here off of a great suggestion of a trade proposal made by DC. I'm probably in Japan right now as you're listening to this video because it will be uploaded a few days after I record it, but this episode of NHL Trade Proposals features a trade between the Vancouver Canucks and the New York Islanders, and the ultimate question of, would you do it? The hypothetical trade goes as follows. The Vancouver Canucks trade Brandon Sutter, Kole Lind, and a 4th round pick to the New York Islanders in exchange for Josh Ho-Sang and a 7th round pick. Is this something that you would do yourself? Again, if you're wanting to comment down below in the comments, do that please, I appreciate that, but indicate what fan base you are from and the point of view which you are saying yes or no to, because in some of the older videos I said, would you do it? And I just had a whole bunch of yeses and nos without really indicating a winner. Also, I'm putting up a poll in the top corner of your screen with this trade proposal here, indicating winners, losers, mutual benefits, or no on both sides. Sutter, Lind, and a 4th for Ho-Sang and a 7th. Let's talk about why each team would want to do this. So why would the Vancouver Canucks want to get rid of Sutter, Kole Lind, and a 4th? First off, Brandon Sutter is a guy who's got a pretty hefty contract. Sutter is a guy with a $4.375 million cap hit with a modified no-trade clause up until the end of 2021. And that's not terrible, but compiled with the fact that Brandon Sutter doesn't really play all too much, that's what ultimately makes this contract a bad one to have. For the Vancouver Canucks, you're a team that's kind of strapped for cap at the moment, and this team certainly does need to make a few moves before they can re-sign Brock Boeser. And getting rid of the Sutter contract would do just that. He hasn't played all too much with Vancouver, he's been injured a lot, but Brandon Sutter, when he is in the lineup and when he is healthy, he's a fairly serviceable penalty kill, top 9 kinda guy. But the ultimate benefit in trading away Sutter is, of course, the contract. Why would the Canucks want to trade Kole Lind? Well, Kole Lind is a player that had a whole bunch of hype, but he hasn't necessarily been great at the AHL level. A few may argue that he was actually quite bad. This would be a sweetener in this kind of deal, along with the 4th round pick. Now, why would they want to get Josh Ho-Sang? In fact, this is the most unrealistic part of the trade in itself because in a vacuum, the Vancouver Canucks getting Ho-Sang would be a positive thing because he's a pretty skilled player, but in reality, the Vancouver Canucks would want to stay away from all things related to attitude issues, and that's pretty much the entire controversy surrounding Ho-Sang. It's been surrounding him for years, but in this hypothetical trade scenario, Josh Ho-Sang is a guy who hasn't had the potential tapped within him. He's a 23-year-old right-wing player who was highly touted in the 2014 NHL entry draft. Despite that, he went a bit late, 28th overall, mostly because of perceived attitude issues. These same issues are what have limited Ho-Sang from actually making the Islanders full-time. He's been really good with the Bridgeport Sound Tigers in the AHL, most recently getting 43 points in 56 games. However, he's failed to keep a consistent NHL role, despite being at a .5 points per game in the NHL when he is playing. Ho-Sang is a young guy with untapped potential and a whole bunch of playmaking ability. He's got great vision, IQ, puck skills, and he's a great producer on the offensive end. But the defensive coverage, defensive awareness, and overall poise to the game has ultimately held him back from keeping an NHL roster spot. The Vancouver Canucks would get a young player who could mesh with the core that they already have, and a young player who's got some really good offensive talent. Combine that with the 7th round pick to even things out, and you have yourself a deal that sends 2 players that the Vancouver Canucks didn't necessarily see all too much from, in exchange for one that does have a boatload of talent and potential. Why would the Islanders want to do this? Well, it's because Ho-Sang has been on the trade block for the Islanders for a long time now. There are articles coming out every year talking about how Ho-Sang is on the trade block and how he's in a position to get traded and how the teams just haven't found the right fit for him and everything. But the Islanders, what they would be getting in return is a Brandon Sutter who, if he's able to stay healthy, as I said, is a serviceable top 9 guy with leadership qualities and a good two-way game. He can play on the first line penalty kill, and he can overall contribute about 20, 25, maybe 30 points on the year if he stays healthy. This is better for the Islanders than a Ho-Sang who's not playing at all. Because if Ho-Sang spends his time in the AHL, he is literally not as good to the Islanders as a Brandon Sutter would be to the Islanders. Meanwhile, you get Kole Lind, who's a player who still has NHL potential, but who didn't have a great showing last year. He's a guy who could probably mesh well with the Bridgeport Sound Tiger system if they allow him to play his game, but that game is untapped. It hasn't been seen in Vancouver or in Utica. It's a goal-scoring offensive IQ skill set that was prevalent in the WHL, but hasn't been shown since. Kole Lind certainly can become a great NHL player one day, but the likelihood of that happening has been diminished by his recently finished up Utica Comets season. That doesn't, however, dismiss the fact that he does have potential. So what the New York Islanders are doing, they're getting rid of the guy that they've wanted to trade for a while and exchanging him for an NHL-ready veteran and a guy who probably has some NHL potential if things go right, too. Add to that the picks, balancing it out, and you have yourself what appears to be a good trade. So would you do it? And if you would, who do you think wins? Vancouver or the Islanders? Is this a win for both teams, or is it a win for none? Brandon Sutter, Kole Lind, and a 4th in exchange for Josh Ho-Sang and a 7th round pick. Would you do it? Hope you enjoyed this video social 99, and bye.